Hi, everybody. Last time we were together, I did a quick video on SIM integration for Defender from the Defender point of view. And I got some response from that asking for specific examples. So as it happens, I have used a couple of SIMs. Defender, yes, but we'll leave that for another video. I've actually used a couple of other SIMs, including one called Rapid7. I've used Splunk a little bit, but more recently Rapid7, and actually I've integrated that with not only Microsoft 365, but also a third-party antivirus tool. So I kind of wanted to make a video, kind of part 2 of the SIM integration. So it's going to be a little overlap from part 1 because that was a whole 2 weeks ago, baby, and I can't remember exactly what I said. So we're just going to do another one and focus on more specifics of where stuff goes in these SIM tools. So more of the point of view from the SIM side of things. And it's not just about this one product. It's about them in general and kind of like what to look out for, how they generally work, that it's not magic, that kind of thing. So if you like the other one but wanted to see a little bit more or hear a little bit more from the other point of view, stick around. In this case, we're using Rapid7 as an example. And in the Microsoft 365 arena, we want to have things like Entra sign-ins, the sign-in logs. We want to know about things going on in SharePoint and Exchange. We probably want to know about things going on the device, like virus events, things like that. So we want to connect some stuff to the SIM. So let's go through the basics here, and we'll take Rapid7 as an example. So in this screen in front of me, you can see I have 3 things on the left: Microsoft Entra ID, a representation of Microsoft Office 365 with PowerPoint, Outlook, Exchange, SharePoint. Those are really the things we're talking about. OneDrive is involved in that as well. And then I got the Rapid7 agent, which would actually go on machines. So when you actually want to put stuff on a machine, you'd use some kind of agent. In the Rapid7 world, this is the IDR agent that will go on the machine. So Entra ID, what this is a typical thing you'll have where we're taking Entra events, like sign-in events, and through a diagnostic setting that I have a picture of, I'll show you that in a sec. In fact, I'll show it to you right now. Through diagnostic setting inside of Entra, you would send a bunch of Entra information to an event hub in Azure. So you're going to have an Azure subscription for this. And the list used to be really short, but they've expanded it over the last few years. But for sure, one thing you want in there is the second thing in the list here, sign-in logs. And probably you want to have the non-interactive sign-ins, service principal sign-ins as well for enterprise apps. For instance, if you have ADFS, you obviously you want that as well. The rest of that stuff, you probably don't need. And in fact, take a look if you're just using this for your SIM, see what the SIM suggests that you send out, because you could be sending out a bunch of stuff you're never going to use. And even if you're not using a SIM, you should actually still be doing sign-in logs, audit logs as well. Some of the other sign-in things, if you have an E5 license, you might throw in risky users and user risk events, because you get that information and when you have the Microsoft E5 license or the security E5 license. And you have other stuff in there as well. Network traffic logs, enriched office logs. You may or may not need that, just some extra information. We're going to talk about the office logs. We're actually going to get a different way, but you can get some of that information here. Again, follow your SIM's documentation for this. And we'll talk about SIM documentation again in a minute, because whenever you find or whenever you follow your SIM diagnostic or your SIM documentation, double check it, because that's just people writing stuff. Maybe they had a bad day, or they had a brain thing go on and they wrote the wrong thing in. You would just blindly follow it, or you would give it to someone else and they would blindly follow it. Don't blindly follow any documentation that leads you, down the wrong path and opens you up for attack. That seems to go without saying, but it happens more often than you think. All right, so our sign-in logs we'll get from that. This Office 365 thing I have here. Well, our Office 365 has an API that you can pull from. And specifically, it's the activity feed. And the activity feed is users doing all sorts of stuff. Well, email coming in, going out, users uploading files, creating shares, all this kind of stuff is part of the activity feed, which gets pulled from the event log. And if you ever go into the universal log, I should say. If you ever go into auditing and you look at auditing and you tell it to look for activity, that's what you're searching through. So we want to make that available to our app. And in the case of Rapid7, it can actually use that API. And I'll show you this real quick because, again, it depends on the documentation. For Rapid7, they will tell you, well, you're probably using this diagnostic data anyway. So in Rapid7, we'll just tell Rapid7 to go to this event hub and pull out what it needs. That's one method to do it. The direct API method is for other stuff. And again, this may change over time, but for this one, it happens to be the API method. So I'm going to pop into, let's see here. Yeah, my sample tenant. And here's how I would do this. Again, my documentation tells me to. I'm going to create a registered app, enterprise and registered app. You create one, you kind of create the other. So I'm just going to tell it to create one. I'll call this one N365 activity. Just to give you an example, I'll have to move my face over to the right here. Takes a second to create this, but when it creates it, it's going to create the enterprise app, which is the actual service principal that does the work. And then it's also going to create a registered app, which is where I do secrets and permissions and things like that. The Microsoft world in creating these is the naming isn't the greatest, and they haven't changed it. I don't think they're gonna. So I'm going to go over to app registrations, and I'll see it created there. It got created there as well. There it is. So I'll click on that. It's not doing anything right now, but what I'd end up probably doing is making a secret, and then I would use the app ID in that secret, and I would give that to a Rapid7 or Splunk or whoever else, and then they could go in and get the information that I've made available. What's that? Well, that's permissions. I have to tell this app that it's allowed to get stuff, so I got to click on add a permissions, and a lot of times my permission is going to be graph permission. But there's still other APIs with permissions still available, and this is one of them, Office 365 management APIs. I'm going to use application permissions, so it's not done on behalf of a user, it's just done by the application itself. And you can see here, I got activity feed, read, that's what I want. So this is going to let me go in and pull a lot of auditing information out of what's going on, what people are doing in the tenant. All right, so in this case, this is what Rapid7 would ask for. Splunk and anyone else usually ask for the same thing. So I'll go ahead and add that. And I won't do anything else there. All right, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. So that's the first two. And then the third thing is Rapid7 Agent. Well, this is actually an IDR. The IDR is Rapid7's SIM. I would actually install this on workstations. I would start, Windows, Mac, Windows Server as well. And then this would look at those machines, look at a lot of the event log and other sources, and send up information that it finds to the cloud inside IDR. So where does all this stuff go? Well, if you look over on the right side of my screen, it goes to the IDR cloud, and then it goes into log locations, right? Well, inside IDR, like any other SIM, pulls specific information that it parses, puts into categories, into fields, and then it puts it into the log so that it can go through and search for things, or you can go through and search for things that are important. So there's several logs in there, as there is with any system. In the Microsoft world, when you create an event hub or log analytics workspace, you have tables inside of there. Those are effectively logs where things go, and we query that. Well, Rapid7 works the same way. IDR works the same way. So we have an Active Directory log where we presumably would get Active Directory stuff from the domain. There's a virus alert log. There's a third-party log that holds a ton of stuff. Most of the stuff goes in a third party when you're pulling stuff from other places. So there's a few places like that. And things just sit there. Tick tock, then what? Nothing. Unless there is something called a detection rule that searches in those logs, finds something interesting, and surfaces it for your SOC department to look through in the form of an alert or an IDR, an investigation. So that's what people would see, what your SOC analysts would see right away. They'd see that stuff and like, oh, okay, this is important. Otherwise, they got to go searching on their own. So the detection rules in any system, the things that surface the information, allow you to see them easily, are very important. All right, we're going to come back to that topic in just a little bit. All right, so that's the basics that you have. Got to have that stuff to begin with. Let me make this a little bit smaller here. So what about all the security stuff that we want to throw at the SIM for like bad things happening? Security events. Well, there's a few ways to do that. In the Defender realm, as we know, Defender has 4 cloud pillars, right? Defender for endpoint, one we're going to focus on. Defender for cloud apps, the KSB. Defender for identity, that's more or less the on-premise Active Directory monitoring that goes on. So you have all of that stuff to deal with. You also have Defender for Cloud, which is the Azure, and then Defender for Office 365, which is email, but it works with Teams as well, so they don't call it Defender for Email or Defender for Exchange. They call it Defender for Cloud. Okay, I'm sorry, Defender for Office 365. Very confusing naming. That's just Microsoft. There's another Defender, the Windows Defender and a malware that runs on devices. Right? That used to be the only thing called Defender, but then Microsoft decided to rebrand a bunch of other stuff under this Defender umbrella, and they do that from time to time, and it kind of makes sense, but we're just going to have to go with it. Well, what about that stuff? Well, that stuff can also go into a SIM. You just have to set it up the right way. So there are actually, believe it or not, 3 different paths from Microsoft that can go to a SIM, right? And it's because there was some older stuff, newer stuff, right? So it's just the way it is. So in a Microsoft world, no matter what the SIM is, there's actually 3 ways that you can allow a SIM to get to the alerts and the information from the Defender products. The first one, the older one that I have in here, is Defender for Endpoint. It's an API. Again, it'd be an enterprise app that you would create, and you would allow that to go in and pull events from something called, the API is called Windows Defender ATP. That's the API, because Defender ATP is the old name for Defender for Endpoint. Well, they didn't rename the API. They just left it called Defender ATP. So you'll find it. This is good, but it only pulls Microsoft Defender for endpoint events. Okay, so whatever goes into Defender for endpoint only. No CASB, no Defender for Office, no Defender for Identity. So if you're only concerned with this, you might want to go with that. It's older, and is that good? Is that bad? Well, bad because it's older, yeah, but good because it's had plenty of time to percolate. And systems like Rapid7 and Splunk and everything, these places have been integrated with it. They've tweaked their rules to find stuff in it, so you'll have good luck integrating it with third-party tools, and Rapid7 is one of those. A newer method is called the Defender Streaming API. what did I call it here? API stream. Okay, I screwed that up. I'm going to rename this right now. Streaming API. Well, this is not an API that you dig into. You get permissions to. Well, I know it's called the streaming API, but it's not. This is something that you go into the Defender portal. And in the Defender portal, you go down to settings, and then you go down to Defender, Defender MDX settings. And in there, you'll find Defender Streaming API. And when you open that up, there's a bunch of stuff you can check. And I got a couple of them here. There's more, though. Alert info, alert evidence. These are for alerts. What alerts? All the Defender alerts. So this streams stuff to an event hub. Again, an event hub. So your third-party product will have to get stuff from that event hub. Rapid7 can do that. Other third products like Splunk, they can all pretty much do that because this is sort of an older one as well. I haven't had a ton of success using the streaming API. I find it's missing information. And it's delayed because it goes through an event hub. So this is not the one that I would normally use. There's a newer one. And that one does use an actual API. And a newer one, Graph, security graph or graph security, whatever you want to call it. Graph is one big thing. Security is part of that. So what you would do with the enterprise, you would make an enterprise app and you would give it security events read all and maybe security incidents read all and maybe security alerts read all. I'm going to put that in here as well. What's all that stuff? Well, I'm glad you asked. Security events and security alerts are actually two different versions of the alerts. Security events is alerts 1.0. Security alerts is alerts 2.0. What's the difference? Well, security alerts 2.0 has some extra information in it, recommendations, a lot of cool stuff like that. So it's the newer version of alerts. The security events read all was created before they had the idea of calling it an alert. And then they're like, well, when they went to the new ones, instead of calling it security events 2, they just said, let's just call it security events alerts. Let's confuse the heck out of everybody. So anyway, security alerts is the newer alert. That's the newer kind that you'll see in the Defender portal. So if you were to see an alert in Defender portal and you would go and look at all the information, and if your third-party SIEM used the security events instead, when you look through the alert, they'd almost look identical, except the one in the Defender portal, the new one, would have a little extra information in it than the one that went over to your SIEM. So which one should you choose? Your SIEM will have to tell you which one to choose. They have it programmed into their cloud app to go get one or the other. They make a call for security events or they make a call for security alerts. It's up to the SIEM and what they have. Probably, I'm going to guess, most of them are still using security events because that was the old one. It's already in there. Why switch it up now? Why try and add it? That costs money, extra programmers. So it's up to them. Security incidents. Incidents are correlated alerts that go into an incident in the Defender portal. Should you send those? Again, up to your SIEM. Probably your SIEM's not going to ask for those because your SIEM wants to do it itself. It wants to take these alerts and put them together and say, hey, it looks like these have something in common. But who knows? Depending on the maturity of your SIEM, they might tell you to pull these incidents over as well. Microsoft incidents actually have a lot of the alert information right inside of them. And in fact, you can call an incident and ask it to call all the alerts as well that are part of the incident. Is your SIEM going to do that? Yeah, it's a newer thing. So if they've been around for a while, they're probably sticking with their old systems. But again, look at their documentation. So that's the newer one that pulls events from Defender for Endpoint, Defender, everything. Everything goes in there. So again, it goes into these log repositories and there's detection rules. Okay. Let's talk again about detection rules. In the case of Rapid7, I have noticed that Defender for Endpoint got a bunch of detection rules that pull that stuff up. Looks fantastic. But for the newer API, the bottom one, it doesn't seem to detect a whole bunch of stuff. I dug into it to find out why. I was looking at the detection rules, and it turns out in the older events that come from Defender for Endpoint, there's like a category that says one thing, and in the new alerts that go into the Defender portal, that category says something slightly different. And Rapid7, a bunch of other places, they haven't updated those rules. So while the alert goes to the Defender for Endpoint, and then when it gets to the Defender portal, it gets modified slightly through some black magic on the back end. The categories and the things that it triggers on, they change a little bit. So I have found that not a lot of detection rules will pull stuff up for the newer Defender 365 API, the security API. You can make your own detection rules easy enough. Anything with a medium or a high gets surfaced, and then you can read through that and see what's going on. And then go to the Defender portal. That's fine. I just want you to be aware that that's the thing. These third-party companies, they're not updating their apps every single second of every day. And every time Microsoft, on a whim, makes a change, I know it's not a whim, but they make changes a lot. These third parties got to all of a sudden say, oh man, we got to revamp the whole thing and keep up with that. And a lot of times they just don't. So be aware of that and look, do some research and see the best way that if your SIM gives you two options, the best way to do it. All right. Now, when I was dealing with Rapid7, I had a customer that also was using third-party. A couple customers that also used third-party antivirus. They didn't at the time trust Windows Defender for good reason in the past. In the past, Windows Defender wasn't the greatest. Microsoft Security wasn't the greatest. And 20 years ago, it sucked. 10 years ago, not the greatest. But Microsoft, that has been their priority for a decade. So they pretty much caught up. Anyone that says Windows Defender or security is poor, or you can disable it or get around it, this is decades old thinking at this point. In fact, we talked about it in the Defender series. There's tamper protection that's very difficult to get around. So if you use a third-party antivirus tool, then how does that go to your SIM? Well, a couple of ways that it could get there. Probably your third party running on the device itself. So you have a picture of a laptop there. It's supposed to look like a laptop. Silence in this case. That sends information to that third party, Silence in this case, cloud. And then that hooks into the SIM. Could we go right from the device to the SIM? Well, yeah. But the SIM agent, in this case Rapid7, that would actually have to be able to interact with that local antivirus on the machine. It would have to interact with its log somehow and pull information right off the machine and send it directly. Well, that would mean that Splunk or Rapid7, whoever has an agent, they'd have to make the agent be able to talk to any antivirus there was. And they're not going to do that probably. So you do it like this. It goes through one. You got Bitdefender, it goes through the Bitdefender cloud, and then you integrate those with Rapid7 or Splunk or whatever, and then you see that, or Sentinel, and then you see that. Okay, so it doesn't go to the agent and then directly over. It's going to go through a third-party service, more than likely. Unless your antivirus is the built-in Windows Defender. In that case, your SIM agent probably does interact with that because they know that's more than likely going to be the antivirus that you're using. And there is a quick and easy way to take a look and see what that antivirus is doing. It's in the event log. So, and it's a known event log location, right? So in this case, a Rapid7 agent, it can actually look at that. And it's going to see, did Windows Defender find a virus? Did it take care of that virus and quarantine it? Okay. Or did it not? Okay. These are different numbers, different numbered events. And depending on your SIM, it'll tell you, well, it took care of it, didn't take care of it, or maybe the SIM just says, hey, there was a virus alert. Depends on how mature the agent is. So that will get sent directly over for Rapid7, and a whole bunch of other third-party SIMs will do that as well, because We don't need to go to the cloud for that. Is that good? Well, that might not be good. What if we've already done this slide over here and we've had either Defender for Endpoint or the Defender Security API? What if we're getting stuff from there? Then we're already getting those virus alerts sent over to Rapid7. Okay? We don't want them coming from here as well. So again, something to look at. You probably want to disable this agent pulling that out of there, or at least get rid of the detection rule that would surface it, because then you're going to have detection rule from one of the API methods and detection rule right from the agent itself with the antivirus, and then you'll have to deal with that duplicate events. So again, this is a common problem in SIEMs when we're dealing with devices and the cloud and the SIEM cloud. Multiple paths for information to get to the SIEM. You have to eliminate one of those. You have to reduce that cloud of crap coming at your SIEM. All right, so that's pretty much my quick spiel on SIEMs and the reality of them. They are not magic. There's some magic. It just depends on how much work your SIEM manufacturer has done ahead of time, right, to make all that stuff work well. But it's as you can see, there's some work to be done, and you're going to have to get to work and make detection rules and make connections and get rid of connections and suppress stuff, and then that doesn't even get us into the managing all the alerts, the incidents, investigations, whatever your SIEM calls it, and tweaking those alerts, suppressing them, making custom alerts, all that kind of stuff comes in afterwards, right? And again, it depends on all the sources themselves. They come in. You're going to have to decide what happens when your SIEM gets those alerts. Some SIEMs, they can correlate stuff from different products. Some don't. You got to do it a bit yourself. There's anomaly detections that could be in play. You have to tweak those as well. So again, no magic here. It just gives you the ability to round all that stuff up into one place, and then you start to work and configure that correctly. So that's it. That's my take on SIEMs. Again, longer than I wanted to go, but I think it was worth it. Be careful when you're choosing a SIEM. Talk to other people that have used that SIEM for your particular implementation. We spent a lot of time in the Microsoft world here. So if you're starting from scratch and looking at a SIEM, you might be looking at Sentinel. The pricing of Sentinel is a bit difficult. It's a consumption-based service. You do get a lot of free stuff if it's coming from the Microsoft 365 stuff, Exchange, SharePoint, all that kind of stuff. That ingestion doesn't cost you anything, but ingesting other things does cost you. It's not license-based, so you can't say, it's going to be X amount of dollars for this number of users. Or X number of dollars for this number of devices. There's SIEMs that work like that. Sentinel is not one of them. So again, the pricing in the SIEM is important as well. Dig into that. Go past what the sales engineer is telling you and do some homework so you can actually figure out how much something is going to cost. And it's going to be some guesswork. And you're going to have to get some samples from them. Say, what is a typical company my size cost that has this stuff, all right? So you could probably get some kind of estimate. So that's it. Be cautious with those SIEM tools. Again, I'm going to mention documentation again. I'm mentioning this for a reason. I don't want to say that reason, but we've been talking about a product or two today. And all I'm going to say is that documentation can be wrong. And if you get any third-party tool that integrates with Entra API, a registered app, you create registered apps so that you can give specific permissions to those registered apps, like security events, read all, or activity feed, read all. There should be no reason to give that enterprise app, that registered app, there should be no reason to actually assign a role to that app, like global administrator. That's insane. If you see documentation that tells you to do that, call the company up and ask them to review it. They're human. They make mistakes. All right, that's it. So stay safe out there, everybody.